If I could turn the clock back a couple of decades, I would get myself a mentor from the get-go. It would have saved me from a lot of unnecessary suffering and mistakes along the way. Of course, everybody needs to make mistakes. Everybody's on their own journey, but there are quite a few unnecessary mistakes that a mentor can help you avoid and also help accelerate your learning curve. Here's a really sad truth. There are likely tens of thousands of people around the world who have taken NLP trainings, who have taken hypnotherapy trainings, who have done various coaching programs. And quite a few of these people have no business seeing clients anyways. They don't really care. They're not passionate about the work. But some of these people are. Some of these people have a good heart. Some of them really want to do the work, but they're unable to make the transition from the seminar room to actually being able to get consistent results in an actual practice. And furthermore, many people fall away as a result of burnout. And this is unfortunate. And part of the reason for this is that most of the people who teach various courses spend most of their time marketing and teaching various courses. Most of them don't really have that much experience in terms of what it actually takes to be successful with clients. Most therapists, coaches, NLP-oriented agents of change, and hypnotherapists are engaged in doing a second job that their clients aren't actually paying them to do. Now, this job usually consists of managing the client's impressions of them, to maintain a proper professional facade, and to cover their weaknesses. And this second job results in people being in their own head a lot of the time when they're attempting to do change work, dealing with their own unconscious fears. It gets worse. A lot of the time, in an attempt to be empathetic and in an attempt to understand the client, they will unconsciously access their own unresolved stuff and then begin to see the client through that unresolved stuff, ensuring that the change work primarily becomes about the therapist or coach and not about the actual client. Now, few things are more costly, both for the clients and for the agents of change, than this. Not only in terms of getting really good, consistent results, but also in terms of being able to deeply enjoy the work. This second job gets in the way of really connecting with the clients. It gets in the way of true listening. It gets in the way of being in a flow state, and being in a flow state while being deeply connected with the clients. It's actually, as a part of that, where the deep intuitions come in, the insights, the creative breakthroughs that really has a tendency to result in great outcomes. So being able to operate from a flow state and to be completely present when you're seeing clients actually requires you to fire yourself from that second job. So for me, mentoring is really about helping someone to dramatically reduce or helping them actually fire themselves from that second job so that they can be completely present with the first job that the client is actually paying them to do and which they are truly passionate about. This is where I can help you. I've spent the last 19 years seeing clients professionally. I have a very eclectic background. 25 years of practicing meditation. 20 years at this point, this is July 2016, of studying NLP, hypnosis, studying the work of Albert Ellis, William Glasser's choice theory, John Sarno's work, studying developmental psychology. And during these years of change work, I've experimented and implemented all of this in seeing clients. What I've been able to develop as a result of this is a system, a systematic approach, a way to strategically think and organize your sessions. For example, how do you actually select clients who you want to work with? How do you prepare people before the first sessions? How do you task them? How do you set the stage, create a learning context for them? How do you know what to do? Meaning, how do you approach that particular client? What do you look for to enable you to make that decision? How do you troubleshoot? And how do you follow clients up over time to be sure that the results are consistently good? How do you adapt and troubleshoot with difficult clients? What do you look for example, with people with PTSD symptoms or people who struggle with depressive symptoms? How do you actually work with clients who struggle with chronic pain or allergies? Or work with people who might want to explore what they can do using their mind and their emotions if they have some sort of disease, for example. This is where experience actually comes in. So it's so really important to have a system, and that is what most people seem to lack. But you also need more than a system. You need to have the capacities, the attributes to actually make it work. Consider martial arts. Take, for example, a kickboxing match. It's not sufficient to just teach people how to throw a punch or how to bob and weave or how to throw a leg kick. You actually have to develop the attributes that you need to be able to do it in real time. You need the endurance, you need the strength, the speed, the power, the timing, the distance, the toughness, all the attributes that's required. So same thing in terms of actually seeing clients. There are quite a few skills and capacities that you need. You need the capacity to think strategically, to make proper distinctions. You need the ability to evoke states. You need the ability to calibrate nonverbal responses really well. You need to have proper boundaries. You need to be able to operate from a flow state and to be able to connect with people at a very deep level. These are capacities that are possible to develop, and you can develop them in a very systematic way. A year ago or so, a psychiatrist from France contacted me with a proposal. And one thing that he told me with sadness during the conversation is, we're number one again. And by number one, he meant that medical doctors once again topped the list for suicide. And there are likely many factors that go into the mix, both culturally, in terms of systems. But the point and the relevancy in me talking about it is simply this. If you're going to spend time with people who are greatly suffering, people who may be traumatized, people who may be going through a lot of emotional pain, it's risky business. It takes more than being a mechanic. It takes more than just the ability to think strategically. It takes quite a bit of emotional intelligence to be able to create really good results and to deeply enjoy what you're doing. And there are, in this profession of seeing clients, quite a few people who are at risk. And one group of people who are at risk are, for example, the highly hypnotizable, and also people who might be a bit prone to depression and anxiety. Because what these people will very often do in an attempt to understand is to activate their own painful memories time and time again without really knowing that that's what they're doing. And if you do that, it's really easy to become quite miserable over time and to burn out. Other people, due to being scared of their own internal experience, I mean, if you're going to see people, then your own shadow material, your own unconscious stuff is going to get activated. And how do you deal with that? And some people, instead of doing the projections and becoming overly empathetic have a tendency to become very detached and very professional and very cold and very clinical to attempt to protect themselves. But this also seldom works. And it really gets in the way of enjoyment. It gets in the way of having a deep connection to the person who you are working with. So what you really need is emotional intelligence. You need a certain capacity for perspective taking. You need proper boundaries. I'll give you one example of how you can know that a person does not quite have proper boundaries. If you, for example, have a tendency to hold the client responsible for your own emotional responses around them, your own irritation or frustration, then that's a result of not quite having a proper boundary, not being able to differentiate between your experience and the other person's experience. Or if when other people are in pain, you feel a compulsion to save them, or you actually feel guilty yourself as a result of them being in painful emotional states. Wanting to help them is one thing, but feeling guilt and holding yourself personally responsible for it is also a result of not quite having proper boundaries. So as Milton Erickson used to say, you need the capacity to have 1 foot in your own experience and world and 1 foot in the client's world. So this ability to have functional boundaries and a deep compassion at the same time requires a certain capacity for perspective taking that most people in the population don't actually have. They have to develop it. But if you develop it, you can live in a flow state when you work with your clients. And as a result of that, you can be completely present with them, and you can do the truly exceptional work that can separate you from most other agents of change. So if this information resonates with you and you'd like to explore further whether you and I can do some mentorship work together, I invite you to get in touch.